Hi everyone, it's Colleen and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to show you how to take one of your backgrounds that's been sitting around and enhance it by adding texture and shine with the Wow embossing powders. This is a part of the February coffee break challenge and we're going to focus on a masculine background. We're going to make a masculine card today, so let's get started. So here's a background that I made a little while ago, and I just felt like it needed something more. So I'm going to use 3 embossing powders to add texture and shine to this cool looking marbleized background. The first color I chose is called Silly's Fog, and you can see when I open up the jar that there's ultra high powders, which are those white chunky powders, along with fine powder, and that's where you're going to get your texture. The second color is called Decadent Ruby, and this has a shine in there as well as ultra high powders and a ruby color in there too. The third one I'm using is Black Onyx Sparkles, just because I wanted to get some black in there and some sparkly shine. So I'm pulling out an empty anti-static container because Wow Embossing removes the static from the powders so that it makes it easy for you to put the powders where you want them. So I'm using that container along with a metal spoon just to make sure that I don't add static where I don't want it. And I am mixing the Black Onyx Sparkles with a white puff ultra high powder so that I can get the shine and again, even more texture. And then once that's done, I will have my 3 powders ready to go. What I'm going to use to apply the powders is the Embossing Ink Pad Refill Conditioner. It's got a little ball on the end, which is really cool. So I'm prepping my card base, and then I'm going to use this ball like you would take a pen and write on a piece of paper. And I'm just going to add squiggly lines all over the place. I'm really winging it here, guys. I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but I'm hoping it will turn out well. Now I'm going to add my first powder. And I will have everything in the description box below so that you can go back and go shopping. Look at the difference that it makes, and look at how that little roller ball gives it such a cool, distressed, um, just a really cool look. I can't even describe it. I just love it though. Now I'm going to go in and add more with this conditioning ball to prep for my second color. Now I got a little gunk on there and I wanted to show you that all you have to do is wipe it off with a paper towel. Comes right off. So I'm going in with my second embossing and powder, and I'm shaking it up because there's a mixture of different types of powders, fine and chunky powders, and I wanted to make sure it was well blended. Now remember to make sure to tap gently so that those chunky white embossing powders don't fly off your page. Gentle taps is the key here. Going in one more time because I want to add the Black Onyx Sparkles. So I just love how this looks. If you saw my last video, you will see that I used the mixed media embossing brush to create a background, and that gave me the idea to use this Wow Conditioning Ink Pad Refill to see what kind of a look I would get with this. And so far, I'm really happy with the results. So now it's going to be time to heat this. And you will see that I'm coming in from the back with my heat tool. And the reason for that is because if you come at it from the front, it's going to blow all of your embossing powder off because you're working with chunky embossing powder here. That won't happen with fine embossing powder, but it will happen with the chunkier powder. So start by heating it with the back when you're working with these types of powders. Then once you've got it heated pretty well, you can come to the front and finish heating it up. But I wanted to show you how cool it looks when you watch that embossing powder dry. What happens is that the embossing powder gets a shine to it, and that's how you know your embossing powder is fully dry. But I never get tired of watching that like miraculous thing happen. And I really am happy with how this turned out. It enhances that background so much. The next step is to work on the sentiment. It's from Simon Says Stamp, and it's called Paper Hugs. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick here that I learned from Jennifer McGuire. Right now, I'm conditioning my embossing pad with that same Wow Ink Pad Refill Conditioner. And that gets it nice and juicy every time you use it. And I'm going right over that sentiment with the embossing pad, and then I'm going to add my Decadent Ruby embossing powder. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to do this process 3 times with that sentiment. So I want you to notice what the sentiment looks like after the first time I heat emboss it. And you can see I'm coming in here from the back to heat emboss, and I'm also using tweezers so I don't burn my fingers off because that heat gun gets very hot. Just fair warning, those heat guns get hot. But see how the embossing powder gets shiny and how it looks when it's drying? That's how you know it's done. So again, I'm going to repeat. So see how that looks there. It's going to look different after I do this 2 more times. And that's the cool thing that I learned from Jennifer McGuire on getting your sentiments to have more texture and more depth to them. So I'm repeating the process again and heating it a second time, and I will do this again a third time, and you could even do it a fourth time if you want. But look at that. Do you see how puffy that looks now? That is the coolest look. Now that everything is done, it's time to go in and prep everything to put it on my card base. So I'm placing my background onto foam tape to give it a little bit of, have it stand up a little bit off of the card base. And you can see that I had die cut that with one of my favorite die cuts from Spellbinders. And I love that die cut. And I thought it would be really good for a masculine card because it's got those rough edges. So I'm adhering it to my card base. And sometimes with embossing powder, and it can, your card base can get a little bit warped. So what I had to do was place it under something heavy until that glue adhered and flattened. Now that that's set, that glue has set, I can go ahead and adhere my paper hug sentiment. And I use liquid glue because it gives me wiggle room to place things exactly where I want them. And I'm going to do the same thing here. Just let it set for a little bit. And then when I lift it up, you'll see, ta-da, it's done. And doesn't it look gorgeous? I love the puffiness of the sentiment along with that texture and shine from the background. So I'm finishing this up with a sentiment strip from Simon Says Stamp because I just wanted a little bit something more to help that paper hug stand out even more. And all I'm going to do is adhere that right over paper hugs, and that's all there is to this card. We went from an average background that you had on hand to a wow background. I hope you learned some more techniques today, and I'm so honored that you joined me. If you like what you see, please hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.